How was it, by the way?
I like Greece better.
Okay.
So then to me, they smoke and drink too much.
Oh, wow.
But they have alcohol, I guess, because they produce it there too.
Uh-huh.
They have all these bottles of wine and so it was coming up for graduation. First of all we stayed like 4 different hotels because we had traveling from city to city. They had you know how our students when they graduate from college, they throw off the hat, and they fill a truck or bus or whatever with beer, like party, drink all day, whatever. And instead of them taking off the hat, they taking off clothes.
Wow.
So they tried to warn us, like if they see anybody walk around,
like completely naked? And this is what they do at graduation?
college graduate.
Wow.
But still. Yeah,
So is that a part of their culture? Is that what they do?
They don't mind.
What? That's definitely different. Okay, let me make sure my connection is right. And then we can get started.
And so all of that, and then if I'm going to a hotel, you know, somebody standing out the door smoking, so all of that, like I have to take my allergies, so I'm not. I was ready to go back home. It was a nice experience, and then everything we did, every place we visited, it was about Roman Catholic and we had to show the pictures. Like, yeah. But it was an experience. You know, yeah, if I'm still here. Oh, if I'm not late, I'm late again.
Yeah, I'm hopefully it won't take me that long. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we live. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. We're dealing with an issue that I've been dealing with for a year and a half plus. Because unfortunately, it takes time to get justice served when people who have the power to make sure justice happens, when they don't do their part, it falls on people like me who stand firm on righteousness. So thank you guys for being here for Thursday morning breakfast. This is what we do every Thursday morning as much as possible. We try to be the bridge between all the good that goes on in the community and those that need that good to be done in their lives. Sometimes we deal with things that are quote unquote happy. And then sometimes we got to be adult. If you are watching this live, or if you watch the recording, if you're with a young person, we're going to deal with some sensitive information. So be mindful of that. April and May, I can't remember the exact titles, but April and May are dedicated to the safety of children, those 2 months. And starting the last week in April, and then every Thursday in May, we're going to have different speakers talking about the protection of children, because that's what these 2 months are dedicated toward. So we're going to talk about the dangers and destruction of sexual predator networks and how only righteous grassroots leadership can destroy them. And I say righteous grassroots because those in the community have to take a stand, and you have to be unafraid to take that stand. Unfortunately for us, at least in our community, I don't know about anybody else's, but we have a very bad habit of looking the other way. We have a very bad habit of not wanting to tell on uncle so-and-so, stepdaddy so-and-so, father so-and-so, for whatever reason. And that only compounds the issue, which we're going to get into. So thank you guys very much for being here. Again, if you're watching this with a young person, be mindful, because I'm going to deal with some things that are real life and necessary. And it is what it is. So we got to keep in mind. And if you this is snippets of a presentation I did live 2 weeks ago. So if you have not seen that entire presentation, you can go to my Facebook page. It's pinned at the top and watch it. And if you're not friends with me on Facebook, you can go to our website, growforcare.org, GROW, the number 4CARE.org. Click on events. Then I think it's the first or second option to prosecute a predator. Click on that. And the presentation is at the top of that page. You can watch it there. But I completely lay it out. The evidence, the connections, everything is there. And again, if righteous grassroots people, no matter what they look like, if they don't take a stand and point out the predators keep preying and they destroy the children in some severe ways. And those children grow up to be broken adults. And of course, that affects the community in a great way. So we got to keep in mind that this is not a game. We're in a war for the safety, forward progress, and survival of our people and, of course, our children. and every generation that follows. So what we do matters because it makes the lives of those that are coming behind us easier and or harder. Hopefully it's easier because we're doing our part. What we as a community do matters. To quote Dr. Martin Luther King, he who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetuate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it. And we got to keep that in mind. If you are aware of the evil and you're not saying anything about the evil, you're part of the evil, which is why evil continues. So which one are you? Are you simply a melanated Black person, or are you Black? In our melanated African descendant, are you Black? In our organizations, we don't consider everyone that's blessed with melanin to be Black. Because for us, being Black is state of mind and how you look. Phenotypically, we're Black because we have melanin, but do you think us, our, we, as opposed to I, my, me, like Europeans? So we want to think of this thing as a football game. We want to understand that there are people playing defense, blocking us from moving the community forward. And we're on offense trying to move the community forward in a righteous way. But there are people in key positions that make it difficult for us to do that. And we have to pick a side. We have to pick a side and choose which line we're going to be in. We're either going to be on the offensive side trying to move the community forward, or we're going to be on the defensive side. And if your decision is, I'm not going to be on either side, then you're on the defensive side because you're not doing anything to move the community forward. And again, unfortunately, we have too many people that are turning a blind eye to these very, very, very bad and evil acts that are making it difficult for our children to grow up to be healthy. So we want to make sure that we are on the same page. I'm going to give you the definition for a sexual predator network. We're going to talk about briefly what it means to enable a sexual predator, because that is what's happening. And then we're going to talk about what grooming is. So I'm going to stop the presentation here, and I'm going to go to ChatGPT, which I use a lot for a lot of reasons, because again, I want to make sure that we are on the same page as it relates to what we're talking about and how all of this stuff works. So give me a quick second to share my screen to go back to ChatGPT. Okay, so the first one is what is a sexual predator? Let me find that, because there are 3 things that I've put in here, or 4 things actually. Okay, so what is a sexual predator? So a sexual predator is a person who seeks out, manipulates, or exploits others for sexual purposes without their consent. The term is commonly used in legal, psychological, and public safety context. So a core characteristics of a sexual predator typically targets victims deliberately, often people who are vulnerable, such as minors. That's what we're dealing with. Those in unstable situations are people they have authority over. That's also what we're dealing with. Use of manipulation, coercion, or force. May engage in grooming. We're going to talk about that. Building trust and lower a person's defenses before abuse, repeats behavior over time. Forms of behavior include sexual assault or rape, child sexual abuse, exploitation, possession or distribution of illegal sexual material involving minors. That's what we're dealing with. Online predatory behavior. That's what we're dealing with. Grooming, we'll get into that. So that is what a sexual predator is. I think my first question, I think, what is a sexual predator network? And this is very, very, very important. Because oftentimes we can be a part of a network and we don't know it because we're not doing anything about what we know. So a sexual predator network is not a single universally defined legal term, but it is commonly used to describe a group of individuals who are connected in some way and engage in, enable, or conceal sexual exploitation or abuse. Engage in, enable, that's the key word, or conceal sexual exploitation or abuse. In this particular situation, we're talking about informal enabling circles, not always formally organized, includes people who know about abuse and fail to report it, help cover it up, or provide access to victims or environments where abuse can occur. And we're also dealing with institutional or systemic cover-ups by way of HISD not doing their part to ensure that the community is aware. Situations where abuse is allowed to continue within an organization due to power structures, reputation, protection, lack of accountability, excuse me. So that is what a sexual predator is. That is what a network is. Now we want to get to what does it mean to enable a sexual predator. This is where this thing comes home, or at least it should, to a lot of people. To enable a sexual predator means to knowingly or negligently allow their behavior to continue, succeed, or go unchecked, even if you're not directly committing the abuse yourself, is about actions or inaction that makes it easier for harm to happen. Common ways someone might enable a predator: ignoring warning signs, dismissing report, and this happens. This has happened repeatedly with this particular situation. Dismissing reports or suspicions because people know it's out there. People aren't doing anything. Saying things like they wouldn't do that, which I've heard I don't know how many times, without looking into it. Failing to report, not notifying authorities or appropriate organizations where there is credible concern. I went to speak to the HISD school board twice, and I went to city council once. I gave all of them email all of them copies of the article and the evidence, and I handed out copies of the articles and the evidence, which is more than enough credible concern. Nobody contacted us about anything. Failing to report, especially serious when someone has a legal duty to report, like teachers, healthcare workers, etc. Some teachers at Worthing High School were told to stop talking about it, which is a crime. Providing access to victims and covering up or protecting the person, hiding information, discouraging victims from speaking out, prioritizing reputation, status, or relationships over safety, and that happened repeatedly as well. So, going back to the presentation, again, I want to make sure that we are on the same page as it relates to these definitions and these terms, because if we're not on the same page, we can't come to the same conclusion. So we should have a better understanding of what a sexual predator is. A person who preys on a vulnerable person, typically a handicapped person, a minor, or someone that they have authority over. What is a sexual predator network? People that knowingly or unknowingly allow the predator to prey. What does it mean to enable a sexual predator? You enable them by not making sure that the authorities know about this person and their behavior. You enable them by looking the other way. You enable them by not wanting to look at the evidence. You enable them by saying they wouldn't do that. You enable them by saying, I heard something, but I never looked into it. You enable them by saying, that's my friend, I can't look at the evidence. All of which has occurred. You enable them by making excuses. And the problem, the sin and crime of that enablement is that you are helping a child to be destroyed psychologically, spiritually, mentally, and physically, because you don't want to do anything, because your hands are, because you're looking the other direction. What is grooming? I had no idea what grooming was until I got into this whole Lloyd Ford HISD sexual predator situation, and we'll get into the grooming in a minute. If you don't know who Lloyd Ford is, he's the author of at least 2 books that I'm aware of. He's a former co-owner of the Black Store, Black Hair Care and Product Storefront, eventually closed. He's the founder of Creative Group Economics, a community-centric organization to help educate and organize the community. He's currently Super Neighborhood 75 and 77 president, a former 2023 candidate to represent District D on City Council. Potentially, he's running again for 2027. If you know anything about me, I'm obviously not afraid to name the names. I'm not enabling anybody to do anything to hurt a child. As far as I'm concerned, no good deed, no backpack drive, no feed the hungry, no free haircuts, nothing you do is more important than the psychological, spiritual, mental, physical health of a child. For me, once you start abusing children, I have to move you to the other category, which is an enemy of the people, and I have to act accordingly. People know Lloyd Ford. They know about Lloyd Ford's behavior, but these people, which we're going to get to, they're enabling Lloyd Ford because they're not doing anything about Lloyd Ford. And when you don't, and trust me, all of us know or heard of a Lloyd Ford. Depending on how old you are, you probably heard of a few of them. And unfortunately, because the community isn't organized in the fashion to deal with the Lloyd Fords, they continue to do what they do. So if we as a community don't step up, which we're going to briefly talk about how we step up, these things are going to continue. So Lloyd Ford, by definition, is most certainly a sexual predator. I'm not going to get into all the smoking guns. If you want to hear me get into the detail, because I only talk about what I can prove. The rumors are much worse. I don't deal with the rumors because I can't prove the rumors. The rumors make sense because I have the proof of what I can talk about, but I only deal with what I can prove. So I'm not going to get into all the smoking guns. Again, if you want to hear the smoking guns, go to my Facebook page or go to my website. I'm just going to deal with probably the most damning one, which is the Freedom of Information Act document. When we first started researching this, we couldn't get anybody to talk to us. We couldn't get anybody to give us any information, so we had to do our own due diligence, our own research. So we filed for a Freedom of Information Act document, Freedom of Information Act request, and we got the document back. And this is probably the most damning smoking gun. I think this is number 3 on my list, but this one is powerful, so I'm only going to deal with this one because this will help me explain what grooming is. This is the snippet of what Lloyd Ford did. April 2024, the investigation department received a Title IX incident report from Alexandria Gregory as a principal of Worthing High School that a student reported, as the student's name reported, that Mr. Ford sent a video of himself masturbating on Snapchat and solicited her for sex. That's a felony. The investigation department initiated an investigation and found the following. The student reported that Mr. Ford sent an inappropriate video of himself masturbating on social media app Snapchat and solicited her for sex. The Texas Department of Family and Protective Services and the Houston Police Department were both contacted and reports were made. This is how we know this is a cover-up. Because we went to, what's happening, brother? We went to HISD, we went to HBD, and HBD said they didn't have a file on Lloyd, but this said that they were contacted. So somebody's lying. The third bullet point, the Employee in Relation and Investigation Department does an investigation determined that the allegation against Mr. Ford was substantiated. That means that it was true. Now, Lloyd Ford has someone produced, either he or somebody at HISD produced a fake letter on the HISD letterhead saying that the allegations were not substantiated. That's another felony. But because people don't research, because people enable, because people look the other way, they don't deal with the truth. They only deal with what he says. And surprise, surprise, sexual predators lie. So you can't take his word for it because he's a liar. And he's preying on children. So anything he says, you have to take with a grain of salt because he's not going to tell you the truth. And we had at least 4 people go ask him, just for shits and giggles. Go ask him if he did it. He told all of them, no, of course I didn't do that. He's lying. And the last one, Mr. Ford was removed from his current assigned campus, where the high school was recommended for termination. So, grooming. All of us have been attracted to other people in our lives. You don't immediately get to the point where you're sending videos to a person. You have to establish a relationship first. Introduce yourself, have a conversation, find out what they like, what they don't like. You might go on a few dates. It takes a while before you get to this point. Grooming is what Lloyd Ford had to do to make it okay for him to send a video to this kind of child. And what makes it so bad for the adults, we have a child who was strong enough, brave enough, bold enough to go to an adult and say, I need help with this situation. And as of right now, the adults didn't do their part to protect that child nor the children at Worthing High School. And you know the kids are always watching. The kids are always paying attention. So the kids are probably thinking, I don't know why they would not be. I'm not ever going to tell nothing. Because what happens? Now, it would be completely different if all the adults that knew about this thing moved heaven and earth to ensure that every kid was okay, was properly investigated, counselors were brought in, blah, blah, blah. None of that happened. So the kids are like, why bother? That's a problem. It's a problem for a lot of reasons. So grooming is when you prepare a young person or a vulnerable person for what you're about to do to them sexually. This is where it gets real for me, because we have to understand that these predators, when they attack the psychological, the spiritual, the physical, the mental health of a child, they're destroying our future and they're destroying our community. And specifically, this is what these people do. And I'll get into why this is so dangerous in a minute.
After a child is sexually abused, he experiences severe and long-term psychological consequences because they end up feeling depressed, suicidal. They experience sexual dysfunction, self-injurious behaviors, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and all that also increases their likelihood of being re-victimized again in childhood, later in life, during teenage years, or even in adulthood. They are at a very high risk compared to somebody who hasn't been abused as a child. They are 35 times more likely to be victimized again sexually. And the reasons are, well, mainly a couple of things. One, shame and self-blame. The child, when has been sexually abused, thinks that they deserve what happened to them, that they probably caused that abuse, and then they feel that they don't deserve to be loved unconditionally. And that's a problem in itself, and also because potential perpetrators sometimes look for those kind of victims that they perceive vulnerable. Another reason that increases the risk for being re-victimized is the maladaptive coping strategies that children who are abused as sexually experience later in life. In order to cope with the abuse, they will use alcohol or engage in substance abuse to deal with the pain. They self-medicate themselves that way. The problem is that that's a vicious circle. You are sexually abused as a child, you end up abusing drugs, but that puts you at a very high risk of being re-victimized again because you're vulnerable too. And finally, the severity of the abuse when you're a child and you're sexually being abused sexually is also a predictor for re-victimization based on whether there was force in the abuse, whether there was penetration, whether there were threats, whether the abuser was a loved one or a person that the child used to trust, because that has very long-lasting consequences. Again, they think that that's the only type of interactions that they deserve, that they are going to have, and that probably are normal and expected for them to experience later in life. They will lower their guard, and they will be at a much higher risk of being re-victimized.
Okay, so the damage that this causes a child. Sorry, I couldn't get them to do it in the right order. So this is what we're dealing with. Severe psychological impact and damage, depression, suicide, sexual dysfunction, serious injurious behavior. That's when they're cutting themselves, hurting themselves, suffocating. They're doing things to hurt themselves because they don't feel whole and or loved and or protected. Anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. I learned a few, maybe like 2 years ago that in Atlanta, I'm not sure about other cities, but I can imagine it not being the case. In Atlanta, Georgia, they have more Black kids with post-traumatic stress disorder than combat veterans in Atlanta. Our kids, because of the environment that they exist in, we have more kids with post-traumatic stress disorder than people who've been in actual combat in war because of the environment. And this kind of thing gives our kids post-traumatic stress disorder. And because we're not good yet at getting counseling, talking to somebody, dealing with mental health, it exacerbates the problem and it goes on and on. Shame, self-blame, maladaptive coping strategy. That's when you are trying to deal with something, trying to cope with something in a bad way because you don't know how to deal with it the right way. Alcohol abuse, drug abuse, substance abuse. This is the damage that sexual abuse and or assault causes a child. And youth who are abused are 35 times more likely to be abused and are victimized again because of that abuse initially. So is there a sexual predator network that's protecting Lloyd Ford and people like Lloyd Ford? 100% yes, there is. We have people that we've reached out to that are either already knew about it or that we've given information to so they know, but they haven't done anything. Mike Miles, the current superintendent of schools, he has direct knowledge because that Freedom of Information Act document request, the page before that has his signature on it, so he knows. The last page of that and anything that I say, I can prove. Anything that I share, if you want it, I will gladly send it. The last page of that Freedom of Information, that document requested that there are 46 pages. 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 46 not a part of the document request. We don't know what's in those 46 pages. That's a lot of information that we just don't know. So this is the network that's protecting Lloyd Ford and people like him because they know, but they're not doing anything about it. HISD, the people at HISD, because they're the ones that initially sent it to TEA, the Texas Education Agency. Carolyn Shabazz, the city council person, we sent her information, try to have conversations, we try to have meetings with her. She wouldn't meet with us. Myrna Guidry is an HISD school board member that we physically had sit down meetings with. We went to her before we had the smoking gun and after we had the smoking guns. And we said to her, we need your help. We need you to help us bring this thing to justice, blah, blah, blah. Initially, she said, I'm going to be a part. I'm down for it. I've reached out to Shabazz. We're going to get him. Then we found out later, surprise, surprise, she's going to run for office. She don't have anything to do with it. Individualism. And Alexandra Gregory, that's the principal of Worthing High School, who, there are rumors about her, but we know she knows because she's the one that gave the information by law. She did just enough by law to cover her behind, which again, enabling. So these people have direct knowledge. These people refuse to meet with us and learn more. So we've said to these people, before we had the smoking gun, we said, there's some bad stuff happening. Then after the smoking gun, we said, we got proof of the bad stuff. We need to meet with you because the kids aren't safe. These people said, thanks for no thanks. Carolyn Shabazz, District D council member, part of her job is to take care of the constituents. As far as I'm concerned, if you can't take care of our most valuable asset, our children, then I can't trust you to do anything else. And that happened. So Lauren Ashley Simmons, she's a Texas State rep. We tried to meet with her. Not only did we reach out to meet with her, but we have one state rep, Sister, what's his name? That came here, yeah. Charlene Ward Johnson. She's the only elected person. At the time she was running for re-election, she's the only one that said during the campaign, I'm down. After the campaign, I'm down. She's the only one. That's a problem. We reached out to Lauren Ashley Simmons' office and Sister Charlene reached out, didn't reply. I don't know if they were at Prairie View at the same time, but I do know that she knows Lloyd Ford. And that's a problem too, because you know the predator, you like the predator, you don't want to believe the truth about the predator, so you look the other way. What's the predator do? Keeps praying. Stacey Childs, Texas State Board of Education, called her, tried to meet with her, sent her information. She posted a video about, we got to get some books for these kids. It's important. Y'all help me. Come to this meeting. So I replied on her Facebook post, oh, we're gonna talk about this sexual predator. She deleted my thing. It wasn't there anymore. So gave her the information, reached out to her before and after, smoking guns. She won't have anything to do with it. Roshan Evans, this is not about the organization, Pure Justice. This is about him as an individual. Inviting him to speak, invite him here to speak about things that he's been through in his organization. I think his organization is awesome. But also, of course, we got to talk about this dude that you're close to. Don't want to meet, made excuses, don't want to deal with the truth. So he knows, he's refused to meet with us, although I've tried to give him information as well. And we have people, I don't deal with it here, but again, go to my Facebook page or go to my website and you can watch the whole presentation. I show snippets of text messages that I received back from people when there was an article that came out about all of this. I was sending the articles in and everybody because I want the whole world to know who and what Lloyd Ford is, because for me, he's a problem and he's a threat to our children. I look at every Black child as my child. I'm too small to go to prison, but God, if you hurt one of my children, the ones that I helped create, it's going to be bad news for you. And because I look at every Black child as my child, I'm offended when someone hurts a child. So I'm reaching out to everybody to let them know this is a problem. We got to deal with this. But we have to remember that, again, just because a person has melanin doesn't mean they're Black. Because there's a difference. You can look Black, but if you don't think Black, Clarence Thomas got a bunch of melanin. That Negro is not Black. Candace Owens, melanated, not Black. So we got people that look like us in that they're blessed with melanin, but they don't think like us. That's why in the presentation, which I'm hoping everybody goes to watch, at the beginning of that, I played Kendrick Lamar's They're Not Like Us. Because they're not. And we make the mistake of assuming that black, 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 black. No, we like Chris Rock. Love black people, hate niggas. Two different groups. Negroes and niggas will destroy your stuff because they don't care. Black people don't do that. It's a difference. And all of us might be old enough to remember the Last Poets. Anybody know who the Last Poets are? Last Poets? You too young. Last Poets? No? You from Texas. Last Poets? You on Last Poets? Am I the only one? Okay, the Last Poets were like the original rappers. In the late 60s, early 70s, they were doing poetry.
Okay.
Yeah, and they had I should play it for you, but they have a poem that it's called Die Nigga. And in the poem, die nigga, die, come nigga. And in the poem, he's saying niggas always dying, they love dying, they've been dying, they're gonna keep dying. And at the end, he says, die nigga, so black people can take over. Because niggas are in the way. Niggas get in the way. Niggas are playing defense, we playing offense. So if we don't understand that niggas and Negroes exist, we will always make the mistake of relying on Negroes and niggas to do something that they're never going to do. Carolyn Shabazz had her chief of staff call me the next day when I went to city council to speak about all this. And for an hour plus, we were on that phone talking, and he never said, not once, he never asked me about the kids, the other kids, the parents. God, he said to me repeatedly, my only concern is making sure that Carolyn Shabazz's name is not connected to Lloyd Ford. And I said, brother, that's a problem. That's why people don't vote, because people like you. Because they never see anything good coming out of voting, and here you are protecting the predator and your boss, and you hadn't asked me once about the kids, but that kind of stuff happens over and over and over and over and over again. And because we don't understand that these people enable the predators because they're more concerned about themselves, because they're Negroes and niggas, we lose. So we gotta change a lot of things as relates to how we function in our community. So these people refuse to meet with us to learn more, and these people they know about it and they decline to offer assistance. Mike Miles, HISD School Board, I met with them before and after we had the Smoking Guns, Carolyn Shabazz, Martha Catholic Simmons. These are people on city council. I remember the black faces that when I went to speak, I don't remember the non-black faces for that reason. Some of them were there, I just don't remember. And I have a tendency to put more responsibility on the shoulders of a melanated person as opposed to, and that doesn't mean that non-melanated people can't be responsible. I just expect more out of you because you look like me. I understand you might not be me, obviously, but I expect more out of you. So again, email all of these, every city council person, handed out copies of the article, the evidence. I even blew up some stuff, so it'll be easy. It's right there. I'm here. What I just read to you guys. Wait, you guys saw the description of what Lloyd Ford did? You didn't see the description, did you?
Yeah, I was familiar with that.
Okay, did you see the description of what he did? Okay, he did a bad thing. So I read to them the description, a very brief paragraph of what he did. I'm at City Hall talking about a active sexual predator with evidence. Nobody came up to me afterward and said, "Oh my God, what can I do to help?" Edward Pollard, who I don't know if he had a business relationship with Lloyd, but he knows him. He was literally hiding behind his paper, literally. Willie Davis, he looked through the paper, the article, and he put it down and screwed it back against the wall, as if to say, I ain't got nothing to do with it. She was chairing the meeting because the mayor had to leave. She thanked me for coming, but that was it. Carolyn Shabazz came out after the meeting and said, I heard a rumor, I advertised, and that was it. And amazingly, shockingly, she thinks that by saying, I heard a rumor, I advertised, she thinks that absolves her of some responsibility, but you're the district, you're the councilwoman of the district. If you heard a rumor and the rumor was bad, you should have gone to the community and say, talk to your child. Gone to the school and say, we got to talk to these kids. Gone to the school and say, we got to bring some counselors in. Kids get in fights, kids pull alarms, kids misbehave. They call the police, they call CPS, kids get locked up, kids have sex. They punish the kids for being kids and doing silly stuff, but you don't want to punish a predator that we have proof of. And let me tell you, predators don't prey just once. And they travel in packs. More often than not, they know each other, right? So you have people that we've made aware, and this is not the whole list. It's not we've made aware. They don't care. And for me, this is just me. If you care, you do. You don't care, you don't. And when you don't, you allow the predator to prey because evil don't stop being evil just because of evil. So specifically, the dangers of this network. We got to understand that they're on defense, we play in offense. We trying to move the community forward, and they're getting in the way. They're in the way. Kendrick Lamar, they're in the way. That nigga, they're in the way. So they look like us. So the people get confused on what it means to be black as opposed to melanated. We don't know who to trust. I voted for them. They look like me. Do good. But the community has been looking the same way for a very long time. For us, we say Republican, Democrat, two wings of the same bird, unfortunately. Marcus Garvey said, I'm sorry, not Marcus Garvey, Dr. John Henry Clark said, if the solution for our people is not coming from our people, it's probably not a good solution because it comes from someone else. So, number two, the dangers of this network, because they look like us, but don't always look out for us. Our people get disgruntled, disengaged, disinterested in voting, which is extremely dangerous. They defend against real justice. They are in the way of us moving this thing forward. If these people were on board, hell, if they did their job, I wouldn't have to be doing this because it would already be done. So if they care, now I guarantee you, if this was not him, if this was any one of their children, the motivation, the activity, the forthright, I mean, it would be different because it's their child. But because they don't see every black child as their child, they allow things to happen, which is the problem. So they work against real justice, they work against real progress, they impede for momentum, and they keep the community in a position of should be want need because of how real change happens. They don't know how to create real change or they don't care. So this is where it gets real for me. Statistically speaking, 1 out of every 4 kids have been and are still being sexually abused. 1 out of every 4. So throughout your day today, when you see 4 kids, 1 of them going through something. And they're going through something because these networks exist and nobody's saying anything. So these kids go through these things. So this is an illustration of how bad this is. So we got an individual who's preying on a child, and he's doing what he's doing because he's evil. People know about the predator, but people don't say nothing. What's the predator do? He keeps preying. Everybody is looking the other way. Everybody is saying he wouldn't do that. Everybody is saying he's one of us. Everybody is saying you're trying to tear a black man down. Everybody is saying I heard something, but it's a rumor. Everybody's saying he ain't been prosecuted. Everybody's saying that's them, not me. All the while, he's preying on kids. Right? And of course, he's not the only predator. Which means what? 1 in 4. So it ain't just him. It ain't just Lloyd Ford. It's all the Lloyd Fords. But because we look the other way, Lloyd Ford continues being Lloyd Ford. Of Worthing High School's 800 plus students, 25%, that's 200. 200 victims. Because we melanated black folk don't want to do anything because we're making excuses because we like the predator. I venture to say that all of us know somebody or somebodies in our lives that have been abused sexually. And chances are they were abused sexually because not enough people said anything or did anything about the abuse. As a community, we got to change some things when we realize that there is danger, especially when it comes to the child. We got to act, because if we don't act, the danger don't stop. There's no reason for it to stop. Stop for what? These niggas ain't gonna do nothing. So the predators ain't stupid. They understand the psychology of the people. They understand that I can show them a fake document. They're not gonna research it. I can tell them whatever, they're gonna believe me. The predator is doing what predators do. And if you don't incentivize a predator to leave the space, he or she gonna keep preying. But that is how our community gets destroyed. And yes, of course, racism plays a role. White supremacy plays a role. There are other things that play a role. Hell, our own history since we've been here. We've gone through a lot of stuff that other people have done to us that they're still doing to us. And you got what we call, in our organization, we've broken down the different factions of African descendants because we're all not the same. And we would call him a melanated Negro savage. Because that's how we see him. Because you're destroying the mind, the psychology, the spirit of a child, and you don't care. And when we identify those that are enabling you, we got to move them to that category as well. So at some point, we have to stop playing games with the evil that exists in our community. Understand that, as Ms. Fontenot and I were talking about on the drive up, the damage this causes a child is the damage that causes a community. So our children are dealing with all this stuff, but they grow up as adults dealing with all this stuff. And they're still dealing with all this stuff. So if you got Worthing High School, where statistically 200 kids are dealing with this stuff, and then you look at all the other high schools, and you add the middle schools, and these people grow up not ever having properly dealt with any of this stuff, because we don't do therapy like we should. We need individual group therapy like nobody else, as far as I'm concerned, because of what we've been through. And that's one of the reasons how I know we are an extremely powerful people, because we're still here. A lot of us are still functioning at a high level, but a lot of us are broken. And we're broken because the system has been anti-us, and we got predators in our own space that look like us that we refuse to deal with. So there's no wonder when you couple the two, why the community don't move forward. Because we broke on multiple levels. And those of us who are, I won't say unbroken, not as broke, who can still function, we haven't come together enough to do something, because what we've accomplished has been a very small group, very small. I count on one hand. We got to get more people involved, because what we're up against, these people play very good defense. And we know they play defense because sexual predation's been going on for a long time. I had one brother who, if I gave you his name, I'd be surprised if you don't know him, because he's been around for a long time. He fancies himself a community leader. When I sent him information about the article that came out, he said, yeah, I heard about this about a year ago. People know. People don't do. So the evil continues because evil exists. And as much as we love to talk about God, the Bible, church, Jesus, when you see evil, maybe that's why God put you here, to confront the evil. So we got to understand that we shouldn't wonder why the community don't move forward, because we're dealing with all this stuff, which doesn't stop because we don't do our part to stop it. So we have to rethink what it means to be a leader in the community, and we got to rethink how our communities function. Lloyd Ford ran for office in 2013. All of the evidence, information, everything points to him running again. So right now we have Lloyd Ford as a baby priest. He hadn't grown up to be a grown priest. Sorry, Ms. Fontenot, I know you're Catholic, but things happen in Catholic church. Yeah, we got to catch him now. And not only do we have to catch him now, we have to catch the other ones, because he ain't the only one. I highlighted the network that is protecting him by not doing anything officially because they have the information, or by choosing not to because they don't have anything to do with it. But for every community member that knows, heard a rumor, know about some truth, and you're doing nothing, you're part of the network as well. Because the network can be a part of it willingly or unknowingly. If you don't do something, all those things, you are leaving our kids just out there. And again, we had a kid brave enough to come forward and say, I need help. But we didn't do anything. And Lloyd Ford is still out there spending a lot of time around a lot of kids. And people have said, well, why wasn't he prosecuted? Because people didn't do their job. That's why he wasn't prosecuted. That's why I'm here, because people didn't do their job. And I tell people that when in the presentation I did a few weeks ago, again, please go watch it. Facebook, my website. I give the smoking guns. The second smoking gun is the Texas Education Administration's Texas Education Agency. They have a do not hire registry, and it states what you have done to be on that registry. I don't have that kind of power. I don't control that registry. Grassroots Black people don't control that registry. You get on that registry because you did a thing. and that thing was a bad thing. So you can say that this is a part of an NAACP smear campaign, which it isn't. This is AI, which it isn't. This is Brother Tamani used to work for me. I had to fire him. He's disgruntled. Not true. You can say everything you want to say, but the evidence is the evidence is the evidence. And we got 6 smoking guns. I only talk about 5 because the 6th one is the community knows. People know, but because nobody wants to get involved, you leave every kid vulnerable to the evil that exists. And you know the evil exists because you know the evil exists. And then here I come. I sit behind thinking, I got some proof about the evil. I went to HISD twice. Before the smoking gun and after. Nobody came, and I read that description. Nobody came up to me and said, what can I do to help? Why? Because they don't give a damn. I guarantee you, if Lloyd was white and the child was black, we'd be pissed off. If they were at a different school and the child was white, Lloyd was black, he'd already be locked up. If Worthing High School had money, he'd already be locked up. If they had political connections, he'd already be locked up. We're dealing with poor black people, poor kids, poor parents, poor community, nobody gives a damn. That's why the community had to step up. Because we've been black our whole lives, we know what this thing is about. We always got to work extra hard to make sure we get the justice that we deserve. And if we don't work extra hard, our kids are going to suffer and they're going to grow up to be broken adults and the community is going to continue to suffer. And then that's compounded with being black in this country and everything that we've gone through. And it's been proven that trauma can be passed down through the genes. And I know of no group that's been traumatized more than us on this planet at this point. So we gotta change how we think about the community. We have to have a community council. And I'm going to start this. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it. I'm going to be calling Ms. Fontenot because she knows everybody. We got to find some people that are already connected to the community. And we have to say we need a council that if anybody says they want to represent us in any fashion, we have to know who you are. We got to do a very real background check. And we have to interview you. Like Ms. Fontenot asks every candidate that runs for office, who are you? I haven't seen you. Why are you running? And if you're running and the community hadn't seen you, maybe you shouldn't be running because you ain't done no work. So we got to have a community council that identifies, vets, and supports those that we put up to run. Ideally, we want leadership coming from the community because the community knows them and they already been doing the work. If I give Carisha Rogers, Travis McGee, Ebony Rain Eatman, if I give them $1 million to help the community, I don't have to worry about how they're going to spend that money. Because regardless of what election is going on, they're going to be in the community doing the work. We can't say that about everybody because we don't know everybody. So ideally, we want people to represent us that comes from the community because they love the community and they've proven that. And they're not going to prey on these kids and hurt the kids. We got to run this space like a nation. There are 3 predominantly black districts in Houston, D, B, and I, as of right now, predominantly black. We have to look at these spaces as nations, and we got to ask ourselves, who's the president of this nation? Who are our diplomats in this nation? What is our main industry in this nation? How are we protecting those that are coming after us in this nation? What is our succession plan? If so-and-so is running for office, and so-and-so is 70, 80, 90 years old, who's behind so-and-so? That's an organized effort. We got to look at the spaces where we are the majority, like Marcus Garvey said. If we're the majority in the space, we need to be running that space. Because if we're not running that space, somebody else is, and I guarantee you their agenda is not going to be ours. So we have to look at the spaces where we are the majority and say, okay, well, how do we run this nation to ensure that we are moving ourselves forward? And I'll tell you why that's so important in a minute. As a people, we're spiritually bankrupt. We're disconnected. We don't know who and what we are. And we confuse religiosity with spirituality, and it's not the same thing. So we got to have people who are spiritually gifted, spiritually talented, spiritually in touch, help the rest of us get back to that superpower that we have as a natural people. We are a naturally spiritual people, but we don't know it because we don't know who we are. So we got to make sure that spiritually we're working the best we can to make sure that we have the right people in place to deal with this evil and move us forward. We got to have a culture that's pro-black and pro-us. We got to have right culture, but you can have wrong culture. We got to have a culture that lets us know that not only is it okay to be black, but being black is a powerful thing. And if you, black person, weren't on this planet, it would be a boring ass planet because we make everything funky. It's just what we do. something as simple as sagging pants, which I hate. We make it funky. Everybody's doing it because we did it. So we're natural leaders. We're natural warriors. We're natural organizers. Things we've been inventing things before inventing was invented. This is what we do. We want to watch Good Times. We take that clothes hanger, put it on TV, and we find Good Times on the TV when we have 4 channels. We got to have right culture, but nobody's going to give us that. We got to develop that, and that right culture has to be about survival and power and forward progress. Because everything that happens to us happens because we don't have the power to stop it. And if we're not voting, we'll never have power, so we'll never be able to stop anything. So we got to make sure that we get the right people in place. We got to make sure that we have an education system that's helping us understand what it means to be Black in an anti-Black world. And that education is not coming from the school system, surprise, surprise. Education has to come from us. We have to have an understanding of economics. All of us have heard, I don't know how many times, how much money flows to the Black community. I don't know if I've heard anybody talk about how we can stop it, hold on to some of it, and then use that to make ourselves bigger, better, and stronger. Hundreds of millions of dollars flow through Black spaces, but it only flows because we give it. If we didn't give it, it wouldn't flow. But to do that, you got to have people thinking about how to stop that flow. I don't know of anybody else in this country that's organizing Black grassroots think tanks other than my organization. If we don't have Black people that are thinking, that know how to think, that are critically thinking, like these white people who are thinking about white progress every day, all day, that's what Project 2025 is. 243 think tanks, 3 of them are Black and melanated, the rest of them was white. They're thinking about how white people are going to maintain power. Not next week, not next month, not next year, but for the next 50 years. If we don't have Black thinkers, part of a group thinking about spirituality, right? Culture, education, economics, socioeconomics, which is the resources of a city, benefiting the people, and politics. This whole thing is a fight for resources. Politics is war without bloodshed, and war is bloodshed without politics. This whole thing is a fight for resources. There are resources in this city that could benefit the people who need it most. Not necessarily Black people, poor people. But there are resources in any city that can help the people on the lowest level. But because of the politicians aren't connected to the people, they don't give a damn about themselves, the people miss out. So we got to make sure that we understand that these resources we need to survive, but we will never have those resources. We'll have the right people in place. And when you have a proven sexual predator running to represent you, you're not going to get those resources because he's not about you. He might do some good things, some food drives, back to school, backpack drive, whatever, but he's not going to do what really needs to be done to move people forward because that's not how he's built. Because if he was built that way, he wouldn't be preying on kids. And we got to understand what's coming. Project 2025 is real. We've been covering this thing for a very long time. They are ahead of schedule. All of these attacks on Black business, Black leadership, Black politicians, Black judges, all this money that's being cut out. If you were to add up all the money that's being cut out of all these programs, it's I think like $13 billion. That this year moving forward, people, organizations, entities, nonprofits are not going to get. What kind of world is that going to create for people who need those resources? Desperate people do desperate things. These people still got to eat. They got to take care of their families. Some of them are veterans, but those in power don't care. If we don't start thinking about how to run these spaces with the majority like a nation, and we don't have these 6 pillars in place, spirituality, right, culture, education, economics, we don't have these 6 pillars in place so we can run this space like a small Wakanda, we're going to lose. And we're going to lose because our enemies are organized. And a lot of times our enemies look like us. But because we don't understand the difference between melanation and being Black, we think, oh, they're Black, let's support them. That's why we keep losing, right? So we got to rethink how we're going to maneuver. And then we have to find the people who are willing to help us maneuver, because there ain't a lot of us. Trust me when I tell you, there's not a lot of us out here. Everybody that I showed you in that network, I tried at least 3 times with every last one of them, except Mike Miles. I didn't reach out to him. All the other ones I reached out to multiple times. Mice urinating on cotton. But again, if it were their child, it'd be a different story. So we gotta remain engaged with what's happening. And again, 1 out of 4 children That's a lot of kids. And then when you multiply that 1 out of 4 in every school, middle, high school, that's a lot of kids. And then if they do get counseling, they still got trauma that they got to deal with. It's still gonna take them a while to have a healthy adult relationship because of the trauma. But what about the ones that don't get it, which is the majority? And then they grow up as adults. And that's one of the reasons why we have grown males and females thinking they're grown men and women because they've grown up, but they don't know what it means to be a man or a woman. You're just a male and or a female because you've been traumatized and you've been broken and you've been damaged, but there's never been any counseling. So all of this stuff compounds what it means to be Black in America. So if we don't find a way to deal with all of this stuff, America's moving toward a caste system, which means if you're born poor, you're gonna die poor, because there's no way for you to be unpoor. And we got to make sure that we are doing what we can do to make sure we're gonna put ourselves in that position. So lastly, I think this is the last one. What all this means for grassroots Black people. We got to draw a line. We got to pick a side. We got to figure out which side we're gonna build. We're gonna build on the defense or we're gonna build on the offense. And a lot of people have already chosen their side based on what they have not done. When I said I can name for you how small our team is, she one of them. She is one of 5 people that will not only let people know what the truth is about Lord, but she will give them my phone number. They're probably not gonna call me because they don't want to know the truth. But she does her part. But she's rare. But it's sad that we got proof of a child and or children being abused, and she's rare. That's a problem. And don't think that the abuse is just happening at Worthing High School, because it's not. So we got to draw a line. I'm gonna make a flyer, draw a line, pick a side, because we have to start moving, and we got to be intentional about our efforts. And keep in mind, well, I'm sure I just say keep in mind because you guys might not know this, but one of the things that we're pushing for is that when all this Lloyd Ford stuff came out, Worthing High School, Carolyn Shabazz, HISD, they never contacted the parents, they never contacted the guardians, and they never did a proper investigation to find out how many kids were affected. Criminal behavior, sinful behavior. But when you don't care, you don't care. They never brought in crisis counselors, so we don't know what the kids are going to. And statistics show that when the kid is sexually abused, assaulted, molested, whatever, it affects them in serious ways. But if we don't deal with it, it's going to continue. So we got to draw a line and pick a side. We got to create the change that we want and need. We got to find candidates from the office. I'm sorry. That should be from the community. I'm sorry. We got to find candidates to run for office from the community. Meaning that, grassroots, we know them. They do the work. And we got to find people who are willing to be a part of a team. People who understand that I don't have all the answers. I'm good in this area, but I'm weak in this area. And that's why that think tank is so important. Because think tanks, as of right now, think tanks serve to make the powerful more powerful. The think tanks are the thinking people who get paid to think about forward progress of their group. We got to have think tanks that are making sure that people in our group understand what they need to understand so they can move us forward. Because nobody knows everything, but everybody knows something. And we gotta pitch in what we know to make sure that those who are running for office are going to represent, because it's what they do. Everything you've seen, as I said, was done by a very small group of dedicated Black people. The team got to grow because we got a lot of work to do. If you see something, say something. If you know something, say something. Predators will never stop preying until we incentivize them to do so. These predators. Has anybody seen the movie Beekeeper? Anybody seen that movie Beekeeper? Exactly. And you laughing, and that's why we need some beekeepers. You seen that movie? Oh, you seen it? Yeah. A beekeeper is someone you send to get things in order when things are out of order. So, as the Minister Louis Farrakhan, this is Brother Tamani speaking. Brother Tamani, no one else. Minister Louis Farrakhan says that some people deserve to die. I believe that. Why? Because evil exists. So some of these people are lucky we don't have the resources to send some beekeepers. Because these people they're bad, But because the community doesn't step up and point them out, then they continue to be bad. So we got to make sure that we elevate our game and deal with this stuff. Everything we want is gonna require a team effort. We need you to get in where you fit in. We need researchers, blog walkers, poll takers, blah, blah. I wanna have 25,000 signatures, supporters in District D, District B, and District I, because they're predominantly Black. My message is Black. I'm not anti anybody else. My message is Black because I'm Black. If I can get 25,000 supporters that say we're gonna help you with this thing, then we can put some people in office to make some things happen. We can create succession plans. We can create ownership. We can do a lot of things with 25,000 supporters. In District D alone, there are 100,000 voters. And 92% of them don't vote. Because they're like, wow, that crap don't work. And they don't say crap. So we gotta have them understand that being a political advocate is not the same thing as being a politician. A lot of the leadership that we need, we're gonna have to raise because they might be 12, 13 years old at this point. And unfortunately, a lot of the adults are too far gone. And lastly, we need you to invest your intellectual capital and sweat equity. Because as I said initially, we are most certainly involved in a war that we did not start. We are 400 years behind. And a lot of our people don't even understand that there's a war going on. And our enemies are way ahead of us because they not only know about the war, but they are orchestrating the war, right? So this Lloyd Ford sexual predator issue, it's a big deal because we're not just dealing with one predator. And I tell people this all the time. It's not about Lloyd Ford. Unfortunately for him, he's the face of it because we know about it and we got the proof. But it's bigger than he is because there's a network supporting his behavior. And the people in the network, they have influence, they have resources, they could do more, but they don't care, which is why they don't. So if we don't find people who are willing to do what needs to be done to protect our most valuable asset, our children, if we can't protect our children, what's gonna happen to the race? We done. Because they're up next. And if they're all broken because we didn't protect them, that's really on us. Right? And none of this stuff stops. This is America. It's been this way since we've been here. Since they said, y'all want to go on a cruise? Yeah, I want to go on a cruise. They lied then. They've been lying from the beginning. There ain't no cruise. Right? So we got to understand what we're up against, what we're dealing with. And if we don't mobilize and organize, again, it's checkmate for our people. And I believe that this is our last chance to put something in place to get this thing right because these people are moving very fast. Trump is a lot of things, but I don't think intelligence is one of them. He's being controlled to disrupt some stuff. And the conversations we've had about cryptocurrency, about Bitcoin, about what's coming, about how these nonprofits maneuver, about these tech billionaires, technocracy, blah, blah. If we don't have people talking about these things in the groups where Black people talk, preparing us for these things where Black people talk, how Black people gonna prepare for what's coming? Because there's some stuff that's coming, that's happening that Black people told us a year and a half ago, they can't do that, that's illegal. They can't do that, that's against the law. Well, if you control all the levers of government, you can do whatever you want to do. Because what used to be illegal, you can make legal. And what used to be legal, you make illegal. And you just lie. Because you got a bunch of people that look like you that are racist that believe anything you say. Although we know you're lying. So, on that note, that is it. Does anybody have any questions or comments for me about anything that I said? Everybody good?
Do you have any questions from the audience?
Oh, I forgot to ask you. No, thank you for that. Go ahead, brother.
I guess the one question is.
I don't know. I'm joking. You ain't supposed to ask the question, brother.
I guess the one question is if you have an individual like Lloyd
Ford.
has
Yes, sir.
been identified.
Mm-hmm.
The system says they've done enough. So how would you like to see, we'll say a consequence for Lloyd? And then from there, are we talking about like a list that,
I like that, blacklist.
No, that's not good. We'll call it a white list.
Right, I dig
it. So a list that will just kind of, I think the biggest issue is people don't know. So you're saying to almost create a list of these people that we know that endanger our people, and how would something like that be
done?
Yeah, how would something like that be done without perceivably being sued?
Good question. Good questions. So the first part is the people, the powers that be have not said we've done all we can do. Because they haven't done anything. That's why I'm here.
Well, according to that article, I think the main article you're
Uh-huh.
talking about,
Yeah.
they said they sent it to the attorney. And he said he wasn't gonna be able to do nothing, just for that specific case.
The district attorney said that we can't do anything without a police report and without the evidence.
Yes,
HISD never gave the evidence. So the DA told us we can't do anything without a police report and without evidence. When we went to HPD twice, they said we don't have a file on it. But the Freedom of Information Act document says that they were notified.
well, what about the victim himself? They charged.
The parents have chosen not to do for whatever reason. And I don't even talk about the parents or the child. I don't know why. But that's what happens when you don't talk to all the parents. Because I guarantee you there are some parents or guardians that say, I want to do something because this is wrong. But when you don't do an investigation to find out who else has been victimized, then you leave it to that one parent and or child. And that's what happened. Second part of your question. You guys have heard me say this, I'm not sure if you guys have, but I was a member of a church called Shrines of the Black Madonna. Very powerful. When I first got here in 1992, we had our own community space, blah, blah, blah. I've seen how Black leadership can be developed. I've seen how Black leadership can maneuver. I've seen Black leadership punished for doing something they shouldn't have been doing. The Shrine was very, very, very good in Detroit, Atlanta, then Houston with something we had called the Black Slate. If you were running for office and you want to represent Black people, if you were not on the Black Slate, you were not going to win because the Black Slate had the people's trust. So people, they worked to get on the Black Slate because they wanted to be on that slate so they can get the votes. So we do the same thing when it comes to protecting our children. If you are on this list, whatever we call the list, the white list, whatever we call it, that means that you have been identified with proof that you're a predator. Everything that I say, I can prove. And that's why I don't worry about getting sued. I've been doing this for a year and a half. So, have at it. But then if you try to sue, that means that you got to have discovery. You got to talk, which you don't want to do. My first smoking gun is most men, no matter what they look like, especially if you got a public name, you want to run for office, you're in the community. If you are accused of a thing, most men, no matter what they look like, are going to say publicly, I didn't do this. This child is lying, this parent is lying, these people are lying. But when you don't do that, for me, that's a smoking gun. Because you're not even willing to defend yourself. You're hoping that it goes away. For me, that's a smoking gun. Because most men are going to say, especially if you know your name is something in the community and you want to run for office, you're going to say, I didn't do this. So we have to establish that kind of list. Because we have to let the community know that there are people out here that will hurt your child. Which we already know, but we don't have an established list. But along with that list, there has to be steps in place whereby the community says, you're on the list, you can't represent shit. And it would be good for you if you crawled on a rock and disappeared. Because at some point, we'll be able to help you disappear. We're not there yet. That's 2.0 down the street. So we got to have that list, brother. Because we got to get serious about our survival. And we got to understand that there are enemies without and enemies within. And if we don't identify who the enemies are, no matter what they look like, we're going to lose. You got any kids?
Of course.
Well, not everybody has kids. I mean,
Well, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, not everybody has kids. All right. So, is there anything you would not do to protect your kids?
I protect them.
Amen. So, if Miss Bess was your child, and I was, how tall are you?
6 weeks.
If I was 6'4", 385 pounds, and I was like, I'm gonna destroy that child. Is there anything you would not do to stop me from getting to your child? Move heaven and earth. That's how we gotta be. Because there are entities destroying our children. And because we're not willing to do everything necessary to protect every Black child, because every Black child is a part of our village, we don't understand that by not protecting every Black child, you are destroying yourself, your community, and your race, because they're up next. So we gotta have that list. And when we have that list, we don't, you know, just like the do not hire registry, you don't get on that willy-nilly. You got to do a thing to get on that list. And in my Zoom 2 weeks ago, I showed the criteria of what it takes for you to get on that list. when that Freedom of Information Act description document, the page before that has Mike Miles' signature on it, it says that they conducted they conducted the investigation online via some sort of portal, which means they were watching the evidence, the video online. That's how they substantiated it to be true. So when you get on that list, whatever we call it, the white list, the Epstein list in Houston, whatever we call it, you're not gonna get on that list because you didn't do a thing. You're on that list because you did a thing. And you've been identified as a danger and a threat to the community, and we got to deal with you a certain way. So again, if we're not, and that's why I said we have to rethink how we function. If we don't get serious about eliminating the threats, both that look like us and don't look like us, we're gonna lose. Because we are losing, and we've been losing. So
I guess, and then the last, to bring some type of redemption and hope. Is there an idea of repentance, or how that a person can get off that?
man, that is a good question. As an active member of the Shrines of the Black Madonna for 20 years, somebody who was trained for leadership and was eventual leadership, I got in trouble, had to sit in front of what we call the Bishop's Council, leadership in the church. I was on the hot seat and they were grilling me. I had to have a meeting with the founder and some other people because I got in trouble. I don't think I was wrong, but I got in trouble. I was wrong. I did it. So, as a Christian, that there's penance, there are acts of contrition, there's absolvation. There are things you can do to make yourself not be on that list. But the first thing that a person absolutely must do to not be on that list, they have to admit that they did something to get on the list in the first place. If you're not willing to admit that you committed a sin, then how are you gonna get off the list? You can't. And one of the things, there's so many that I'm extremely proud of, is that if you guys have ever been on MLK, when the shrine was there, we had a bunch of apartment buildings. We had 5 apartment complexes. Our kids, ages 5 to 17, had their own apartment complex in the middle of the other apartment complex, in the middle. Because we were trying to teach them that all you have is your brother and sister, so you better learn how to work together. We had physical space, literal physical space where our kids were being raised. My kids grew up not knowing anything about hunger, violence, drugs. They were taught how to pray, meditate, martial arts from Black people. So we need Amish type communities where we can separate our kids as much as possible from this American system, because this American system is destructive. It's proven to be bad for our health. And at that time, we had fences up because we were protecting our property. But Negroes would jump the fence sometimes. So we would let the Negroes know, you can't jump the fence, but come to church next week because we want you to be a part of it. So you got to deal with the threat, but you're always open to the threat being better until the threat proves itself that it's not worthy of your love anymore. And we also have to understand that at some point, when Satan is physical and he makes himself known, you got to deal with Satan. And that's just the reality of life, as far as I'm concerned. Any other questions for me? No questions online, by the way. Thank you for having me check. I appreciate it. And people will probably, what normally happens, they'll watch the recording, then they'll ask questions later on, which is cool. Okay, so on that note, thank you guys for being here. We're here every Thursday. Your wife did tell you that I want you guys to get on the list to speak on some Thursday at some point in the near future. Hopefully this didn't scare you off and you will come back. I'm just saying, a lot of times people are like, whoa, he's too serious. Miss Bess, I had one brother tell me, he said, I was trying to invite him to something. And he said, I'm not into the Black stuff like that. And I'm like, wait a minute. And he got kids, but a lot of us think that way. Not everybody, right? And so this is not for the faint of heart, So thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys come back next Thursday, any other Thursday, because I am really here to try and do a thing. I'm trying to be the bridge between the good that happens and the people that need the good. And if as a community, if we can't protect our children, then we are committing the gravest of sins. The Bible says a lot about protecting your child, and we can't do that, then we may as well stop. So on that note, thank you guys again. I'll see y'all next time.